so this is Tree with so many stadiums.com. I'm with Michael from collegemarching.com. And we're going to talk a little bit today about a different side of the college football experience, and that's the bands. So welcome, Michael. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Cool. So let me ask you this. What are some of the characteristics of a great marching band performance?
Wow. I think the bands that you remember, the bands that people talk about, have really focused on the pregame show is really, I think, the iconic moment of a college band is pregame. And if you talk to band members, especially in like the Big Ten, SEC, the Big 12, for them, halftime is fun, halftime is great, but the pregame is where they get the butterflies, where they are super excited about. So, I think that for those bands, having a long history of tradition and pageantry, so you think of Ohio State dotting the I, right? It's an iconic moment. Everyone knows. You think about LSU, they call the four notes, right? The drum major comes out, bum, 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 electric, right? The whole stadium just goes wild. Penn State comes out, insane atmosphere, drum major flip. And everyone loses their mind. So there's these iconic moments in the band world that college football fans are just on the edge of their seat waiting for. And it to them, it like signifies the start of the game, right? The University of Cincinnati, right? There's a band program in the state of Ohio that gets overshadowed by Ohio State, by Ohio University. But University of Cincinnati band does probably the most dangerous entrance into a football stadium in the country. They literally run down the stairs of the stadium onto the field. Okay? So it's one of those things where, a smaller band, really high quality, but does something that you're like, I can't believe that just happened, right?
Right.
And it stays with you, and you remember it just as much as you remember dotting the I in Columbus, just a couple miles away. Right. So, those in my mind, those are the things that really make great college bands, and those memorable moments are what seals the deal.
Are there kind of constraints you think of in terms of a band? It can be too big or it can be too small, or does it not really matter?
I mean, you can definitely, I think you can max out. So there's actually a high school in Texas, Allen, Texas. The band has 760 people in the band. Okay.
Wow.
It's mind blowing to watch them even parade, let alone march on the field. So, in that situation, when you're writing drill, when you're trying to build, pregame show or halftime show, writing drill and thinking a concept for that many people is, in my mind, near impossible. And Jacksonville State rolls out 500 plus. The Michigan State Spartan Marching Band is 320 or whatever, and they're blowing the Spartan Marching Band off the field, and that's just who they are. Right. So I don't know if size necessarily matters that much. So you definitely get into limitations. You can see that, for example, the University of Michigan has a certain number of spots for pregame. So their band may be 400 people, but they only march 200 and let's just say 20. I don't know the exact number. They only march 220 at pregame because the pregame drill was written when the band was only a certain size.
Right.
Okay. And so, if the band is only a certain size back in 1950 and the pregame drill hasn't changed because that's tradition. First and
10. So the students that are in the band, are they typically music majors, or can it be a student that is in, say, accounting or whatever, but they've played for years and they wanted to continue playing in college?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in most bands, 99% of bands, the majority of kids are not music majors.
Okay.
In fact, actually, music majors are typically a pretty small number. The highest concentration are actually engineers in the College of Science and College of Engineering. typically are the highest concentration of band members. Math and science and band kind of all go together. And
Right.
so,
How about is I have seen a couple instances where I've actually seen the marching band bring in like a flatbed trailer and then have like a rock and roll band on it. And they were in band uniforms. This was at Georgia State, I think.
not sure.
Is that viewed as cool or negative, or I mean, what are there purists that would poo-poo that kind of thing? What's the reaction there?
It's an evolving world. I think bands today, like Georgia State, for example, is a relatively new program. Football program is new. They're trying to figure out what is probably going to bring in the most students. Is probably the biggest thing on their mind.
So you mentioned kind of different performances. I've noticed there have been years where I swear I've seen almost the same performance from multiple bands, or at least I mean, one year the Star Wars theme seemed to be everywhere, and every sorry, another year it was the '80s. Are there prepackaged programs that people sell and bands buy? I mean, does that kind of thing happen? Is that how it works in some instances?
I mean, there are companies who design shows and sell them to the bands because the band director maybe doesn't have the time or the bandwidth, or maybe writing drill just isn't their strong suit, so they'll outsource that somewhere else. But yeah, no, you definitely will see similar shows each season. There are some package shows, but typically they have to do with some kind of pop culture reference.
Got it. Is it a big faux pas if a band, if at a game they both did the same program, or I mean, does that give folks angst, right? If they've got one song they're doing and then the other band does the same song,
I've seen it happen. I'm pretty sure that one year Penn State and Ohio State met for a night game at Ohio State, and both bands played 1812 Overture. And it is what it is. It's not really a faux pas. You don't really know what the other band is doing. Sometimes the band directors will talk. We're starting to see actually now that bands are collaborating on halftime. So we're seeing bands come together and say like, hey, let's do a show together. North Carolina A&T, HBCU band, did a combined show, a combined moment with the University of North Carolina Tar Heel Marching Band a couple years ago. And we featured that halftime show, and it's probably still the most watched show or most watched video we've ever posted on our page. I mean, it has probably now 20 or 30 million views.
Are there certain bands that are kind of known for a certain style or a certain approach? Like they really focus on the music, or they really focus on the drill, or A&M comes to mind as like they're very precise in my mind. That's what I seem to think of. Are there any schools that stand out in your mind for one style or another that you would say noteworthy?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said Texas A&M. We were at Texas A&M last year and got to spend a whole weekend with the band. I mean, there is no other precision military style marching band like Texas A&M in the country. I mean, they really are a throwback to the 1940s, and down to their uniforms, to the types of bugles that they carry, and the drill that they're performing. So I mean, Texas A&M they are right there as super unique. And, obviously in Big Ten is really iconic for high step marching, right? So like Jacksonville State, Western Carolina, the bands I mentioned, they march corps style, and they're mind blowing to watch. The Ohio University marching band, or you were to go to Temple University, they are like dance bands. And so they come out at halftime and they'll march traditional stuff. And then all of a sudden they just put their instruments down and they just dance. And it's super choreographed and it's really fun. It's really cool. And they will pick music that most other bands would never even dream of playing, especially at Temple. Temple has just a knack. They've kind of carved out their niche where they dance and they do these really cool shows to music that the typical college band would never, ever touch. And it has gotten them crazy attention. as a band member at Temple, where football is kind of like, not so great.
Right.
And you don't really have, you're in a beautiful stadium, the Eagles Stadium, the Link, but you don't really have a full stadium. But knowing that what you're doing at halftime can then be taken and put on the internet and be watched by millions of people each week, like every single week doing that, I mean, that's awesome, right? So there are some bands like that do some really cool stuff. And then you just have bands who are just really good, right? No matter what they do, they're just awesome. Like Auburn, for example. Auburn band, just fantastic. No matter what, if you go to a game at Auburn and you watch the Auburn Tiger Band, you're going to leave being impressed. Like just soup to nuts, fantastic. But yeah, there's different styles. There's all kinds of different ways that you can look at doing things, but there is no right way or wrong way. All are celebrated in the band world. And
that's Michael from collegemarching.com. Thanks very much. Check out the website. It's great. It's got lots of content. You won't be disappointed, and it's good prep for whatever game you're going that weekend.